Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and specifically welcome back to my Masterclass series where I go above and beyond my regular tank review to help you with things like getting your third mark of excellence, more ace tankers, or just enjoying the vehicle more than ever. Today I'm going to be looking at the STRV 103B. This is the best sniper in World of Tanks. It has one of the highest damage per minute and the best base accuracy of 0.25 inside the siege mode. All of those add together to be a brutal tank as long as you can keep the gun firing, and that is the challenge. The real difference in STRV 103B players is knowing that this vehicle can actually be played quite aggressively as long as you know about the capabilities of your opponent and you have the confidence and the micro to do so. And that's what I'm going to try and help you do in today's video. Gain that confidence to not just play this thing as a long-range sniper that wants to sit and engage tanks that can't see it, but to know how to push, when to push, and how to deal with those aggressive situations. So just how good is the STRV 103B? Well, interesting, with regards to its win ratio, it's in the lower mid of the pack behind tanks like the Jagdpanzer 100, but better than tanks like the T124. But if we actually look at win ratio difference, again, lower mid of the pack, it's definitely having a negative on people's win ratios, and when we take into account that the Foch B is about to be buffed, it's definitely going to leapfrog the STRV 103B. Now this is really interesting for me because the STRV 103B is actually statistically one of my strongest tank destroyers in my entire garage. So if I go and take a look at my statistics for it, I have 64% win ratio overall in this tank with 548 games. So this is actually having a win rate positive on my account, and I attribute that to being very aggressive in this tank, whereas I think a lot of STRV 103B players are just playing too passively. So the highlights of the STRV 103B are one of the highest damage per minute in the game, incredible penetration on its standard rounds of 308, 350 on the APCR, premium, not quite as good as other tank destroyers, but still not bad. Incredible aim time of 1 second, the best accuracy in the game of 0.25, and the vehicle has amazing dispersion values when it is turning, but actually horrible when it's moving forwards and backwards. So you might want to have smooth ride on your driver to counter that. In addition to that, this vehicle does have 13 degrees of gun depression, but only when the tank gets to use its hydropneumatic suspension. One of the keys to survival in the STRV 103B is to know about its armor layout. The side armor is atrocious at 30mm. This means that you're going to get overmatched by all 91mm caliber guns. Accordingly, don't let your opponents get your side armor at all, not even at an angle like this. It's always going to overmatch at high tiers. In addition, you do have a weak point on top, which means that if you see your opponents aiming high, i.e. above your gun, and you'll be able to see that with their barrel, you should actually raise the tank slightly to try and make this a harder target to hit. However, be warned, if you do this and you're making it too obvious, then your opponents will shoot at your lower plate instead. On the upper hull, you have 50mm plates here, only 40mm plates here, but 60 at the front. So this means that you can kind of sit hull down, or should I say lower plate down, so to say, against most vehicles apart from the really large caliber guns, and then you're going to get overmatched pretty much most times. But your lower plate is 40, which means that all 121mm caliber guns are going to overmatch you. Now, if your opponents have heat, it all gets a little bit unpredictable, and while you do have heat protection on the upper hull and also on the lower plate, sometimes it's just not going to work out. But a lot of people seem to think that this is a glass cannon tank destroyer, but really, especially against medium tanks and light tanks, I'll sit in front of everything in this vehicle and just overpower them with my DPM. So crew-wise, this is a very high-pressure tank, and I would thoroughly recommend that you invest into a zero-skill crew. For your commander, you want to have things like Brothers-in-Arms, Concealment, Repairs, Recon. Then you want to have Deadeye and Designated Target, as the commander's also the gunner. And that's without having things like Eagle Eye or Firefighting on your commander. For your gunner, or should I say driver, who also acts as one of the gunners on this tank, I'm going to be taking Brothers-in-Arms, Repairs, Concealment, Clutch Braking, Off-Road Driving, and Preventative Maintenance. Preventative Maintenance is oh so important on this tank, as the whole of your front of your vehicle is basically a fire risk. But again, I highlighted just how bad the dispersion values are on this vehicle when you're moving, and so you might want to get smooth ride as well. Your loader, on the other hand, has it relatively easy. Take Brothers-in-Arms, Repairs, Situational Awareness, Concealment, Safe Stowage, and Adrenaline Rush. And you don't really need Intuition on this tank, but again, that's not having Firefighting. I have to admit, even though I have 6 skills on this tank, I really wish I had my 7th, which really shows you how high pressure this vehicle is with regards to your crew. Equipment-wise, the STRV 103B, in my opinion, must use a turbo. if you are out there and not using a turbo on this tank, you've got to change. The turbo revolutionizes this vehicle. It changes the top speed inside the siege mode from 10 to possibly 14 with a regular turbo, 15 with a bounty turbo, or in my case, a Bond turbo. It's the best tank to use a Bond turbo on, 16 kilometers an hour forwards. That means that you go from being incredibly slow to being relatively slow and still able to catch some tanks while they're reversing if they don't use turbos. I cannot stress how important it is to put a bounty or a Bond turbo if you can manage it on the STRV 103B. It completely changes the tank. In addition to this, I'm going to be using coated optics, and I'm going to be using a gun rammer in this vehicle. Yeah, I know I forgo the vents. It's probably one of the only tanks that I don't use vents on because this vehicle just doesn't quite get enough view range if you were to use the vents instead of the coated optics. My second build on this tank, I'm going to be dropping the coated optics and I'm going to be using a durability device instead. While this means that my view range drops down to an abysmal 415, it does mean that I have the mother of all track repair times of sub 5 seconds, and also my suspension durability with a regular durability device is plus 95%. What this means is that your opponents aren't going to be able to track you, get your side, and keep shooting you in the track, making you look stupid. It also means they're going to have to shoot you in the track multiple times to even get your tracks off in the first place. And when you've got 4,500 damage per minute, you don't need long to be able to rip them apart. Field mods wise on this tank, you must take the suspension durability, which also improves your ground resistances. Next, I'm improving the accuracy of this vehicle. I'm following that up with a view range improvement. This means that you can drop binoculars even on a free-to-play account. I'll take the scouting slot for my coated optics, although I guess if you're really aggressive, you could take durability to be able to improve your durability device on this vehicle. Next, I'm going to improve the reload of this vehicle. It's accurate enough already, and this is a damage per minute focused tank. And for the final field mod, I'm increasing the engine power at the expense of the aiming speed. So I had a good long think about what kind of gameplay I want to feature in the STRV 103B in this masterclass video, and I decided there's not really much you're going to learn from me sitting and sniping at long ranges. Anyone can do that in the STRV 103B, and I think what really sets out the disparity in win ratios that STRV 103B players will be achieving will be those that take the fight to the enemy team and realize it's just a medium tank without a turret. Okay, so firstly, we're loading into a full tier 10 matchup on the Abbey map. I guess there's multiple ways that some people would think about playing in STRV. Some might go and sit over in a bush line here, try and get some shots through the center. Some might go and try and work up into a window here and try and get some cross shots into the center. Some might go and sit at the back over here along the 8 line and try and snipe at their opponents. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the durability device on this vehicle, and I'm going to go and support the mediums and take the fight to the enemy team. This vehicle, it's not the fastest, even outside of the siege mode, but it's kind of like a T62A within that regard. And as soon as you put the turbo on this tank, it's more like an Object 140 without using a turbo, so it's not bad. I'm going to let this UDES 1516 know that he is not the only Swedish tank that's going to be getting forwards here. We're going to go straight towards our opponents. The E50M, the perfect tank to fight in an STRV 103B. He has to fire heat at me and hit my lower plate pretty much to be able to contest my armor unless he hits my weak point. And I know that if I'm going to set up, then hopefully we're going to track him here. Unfortunately, I missed the tracks. Not a great shot. It means it costs my UDES 500 hit points, which is not cool. But just look at this thing's rate of fire. And look at the mobility with the turbo there. It's not bad, and you can get your gun on the target and just keep ripping. You see that I see him aiming at my weak point there, so I raised my gun to try and make the weak point smaller. Unfortunately, the guy knows how to shoot. One of the biggest downsides for this tank is when Wargaming added in the outlining. When they added the outlining, which I think was a good change to World of Tanks, it definitely made it way easier to be able to shoot the weak point on a vehicle like this. Previously, it was quite a hard thing to be able to figure out. Now, it's a lot easier with the simplified outlining, especially with the skins. All right, so that is 1,400 damage in an E50M dealt with. And instead of sitting back and possibly leaving the UDES to die in a 1 versus 1 against an E50M, we got our team forwards. However, that looks a little scary. Well, you know what, Mr. 121B, if you're going to take the shot, I'm going to go in. Now, these two tanks are terrifying for this vehicle. They've got more than 150mm caliber guns, and so that means that they can overmatch my entire tank pretty much. The only plates that I could bounce with would be the 60mm plates above. However, what happens when an STRV 103B gets the side of a T110E3? Well, I can tell you it's not good for him. And I lock the 705A in the way, hoping that the E3 is not going to be able to get me in. Oh, just hoping that he misses. Okay, they don't miss. Both heat rounds, although they didn't need it. They could have just fired AP and overmatched anywhere on my vehicle. But I'm getting forwards. I'm breaching through this hard-to-push position, and I'm making the 121B and the UDES, who would have got absolutely farmed in that scenario, and the 121B and the Super Conqueror on my team would have never pushed through. I am making them useful right now. The T110E3 is not using a durability device, which means that his tracks are vulnerable. And you can see that the turbo there just allows us to go forwards and to catch a tank that's reversing. And now I'm just going to lock him in place. I've got such a good rate of fire, now I'm going to switch to HE rounds because I'm thinking maybe I can still splash if I aimed a little bit high and catch his armor still. But oh well. You know what? He's only got 500 HP. I'll just lock him in place. Keep him held down. The Super Conqueror and the 121B should be able to finish him off. And right now you could see that I was thinking, oh, well, I can actually finish him off. He's got 300 hit points. And I should have probably shot through the engine there. So there we go. That's 5,000 combined in the first 3 minutes of this battle. And I can tell you that's a lot more. Well, we've done a lot more than we would do if we were just sitting back and sniping. If you want to get your third mark of excellence on this tank, and even if you just want to push the tempo of your games and to get more out of your battles, even if you're not trying to look for marks, the STRV, I cannot stress how important it is that you gain the confidence in this tank as a player, and it might take you hundreds of battles to get the vibe with the tank. I cannot stress how important it is that you learn to play this tank aggressively. Every place that you could take a medium tank, you can take an STRV 103B. It's practically a medium tank with really funky armor, an incredible gun that also has... the only thing it's lacking really is the turret, is what I'm trying to say. So I think it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. It's a medium tank with arguably the best medium tank armor, unless they have large caliber guns. 121 for the lower plate, or 155 for pretty much elsewhere on this tank, and it's trashed. But against the mediums or against lights, it's incredible. So it comes down to you hitting tracking shots to lock your opponents in place, a bit like you're playing a tortoise within that regard. And it comes down to your aim. And you're the most accurate tank in the game, although I guess I aimed a few pixels too low there at the 60 TP, so we don't manage to finish them off. Try and find a second shot there through that tiny little gap in the crag of these rocks. And now hopefully we can just go to town with the IS-4. And again, what did I hit? Did I bounce? I bounced off the IS-4 there, quite surprised. Looks like I'm loading gold now to be able to make up for it. And this is where this tank's awesome, especially with adrenaline rush right now. We must have a 4.5 second reload, and we're hitting for 390. This feels amazing. And to have this kind of accuracy now, it really does reward good marksmanship. And while I wouldn't pretend to have the best aim in World of Tanks, sometimes when the STRV gets going, it does make you feel special. And so if you're someone out there who thinks that they're good at shooting inside video games, and for World of Tanks being the World of Tanks isn't a game that focuses on how good you are at aiming. However, if you can aim, look no further than the STRV 103B. You will be rewarded. And that was 8,000 combined with a load of tracking in 5.5 minutes. If you want to 3-mark this tank, and it's super easy, at least for me, it's super easy to 3-mark, just learn to be aggressive. Learn to take the fight to the enemy team, and you will very much surprise them. No one expects the STRV to be in their face. And when you are, and you put them on the back foot and you pressure them, suddenly hitting those weak points or thinking about trying to find the tracks and double track, which they can't because you're using a durability device, puts them into a position where they're just so pressured that they might not be able to handle it. Next up, we're playing in an okay matchup on Westfield. And again, where do you take an STRV on Westfield? Some people, I guess, might want to make their way over here and then snipe across at all the tanks that are maybe going along the zero line. Alternatively, some people might knock down the trees and create themselves a little nest to be able to play around with. No, I feel that I'm a tank with 12, 13 degrees of gun depression. I got a really good gun. I'm going to go where I would take a chieftain. I'm going to go where I would take a super conqueror. I'm going to go straight to the front ridge, use my durability device to make it so that it's going to be harder for my opponents to be able to lock me down, and I'm going to go after my opponents. Now let me clarify, this is a risk. The T-30 can overmatch me. The WT Alpha Panzer IV will be able to catch me if he has the really big gun or the lower plate with the smaller gun. The 268 version 4 can overmatch me. The E4 can overmatch me, and the Guerrilla can as well. But I'm forwards before these guys have even managed to get safe. And I'm going to take the fight to the enemy team. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to take a hit from that BZ-68. But already we have one WT out the game. Bit of a poor shot there by me on the Guerrilla, but I was momentarily stunned. Going to raise my gun here. It's something very important to do on a ridgeline. If you raise your gun, you make the top of your tank much harder for your opponents to be able to catch, and you make that weak point better as well. So don't think that you can just sit there. You must raise the gun inside the sniper mode. This is something that you're going to have to get used to. Just a quick raise of your mouse in between your shots in this kind of a situation when they can't see your lower plate will make you so much safer. And what we're going to be just doing here is, it does make World of Tanks feel like a little bit more of an aggressive game, or a little bit of a clutch shooter in this scenario. And just look at this gun. It'd be like the best, most overpowered medium gun in a game. And if you can manage to work this tank and turn it and just have good WASD control and a little bit of mouse control here and there, yeah, this thing farms. Our awareness, we're having to just keep an eye out on our opponents, aim at them to force them back, and be able to just engage over a ridgeline. Another little tip that I have is if your STRV swings a lot when you turn it to the left and to the right, this is either a connection issue where maybe the server is having some packet loss, or you've got a lot of ping. Usually it's packet loss which causes this. So either get yourself a better connection, or alternatively what you can do is you can actually tap your S key a little bit, or your W key, just to make a micro forward or backwards movement to stop the swing a little bit. It does take some getting used to, but it's something that you can be able to incorporate to stop that overswing and be able to get more shots in. And then, yeah, boys and girls, we are farming. What are we, 2 minutes and 20 seconds into this game, and we've done 5,400 damage and 1,700 assistance. We're not stopping there. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep blasting. This vehicle just feels so rewarding when you get going with the rate of fire. There's no other tank in the game that kind of feels like this. It's like a tortoise. And you can see he's trying to aim for our weak points there, but he can't because we raised our gun. And when he reacts and starts to aim at our lower plate, that's where we angle our tank down. And unfortunately for that player, he doesn't realize that with his 130mm caliber gun, if he does have one of those, that he can overmatch my lower plate with AP. And so, wham, bam, thank you, enemy team in this crowd. Whoa, yeah, don't flip yourself. But luckily, Wargaming has auto flip now, so you don't even have to worry about that. That was, I can't even count that high. 7,600 in 3 minutes, but we're not done yet. We're going to get going on this T-30. And I've got more than enough hit points to be able to get through the rest of this game, and the durability device will be able to keep us in as well. Thanks for that, Artie. I really needed that help. What now? Like nearly 9? 8,800? Let's get going. Let's see if we can hit this E50. I'm not sure if we're going to catch that. I have to admit, if there's one annoying thing about this tank compared to a medium, it's the constant going into and out of the siege mode. It doesn't look like we hit the E50 blind, unfortunately, as he appears on full health. And that was a weird one. I think that's got to be some packet loss. Rewind the YouTube video and see if the indicator at the top... Yeah, there we can go. See some hard red. Yeah, Wargaming servers recently. There must have been a desync between me and the server there, because the STRV, it does not miss those shots. It does not miss those shots. This 0.25 base accuracy, it does not miss those. And hopefully we can clutch shot the artillery at the end of the game. And you can see the overswing there and a beautiful ammo rack. Do we get one more on the TVP as well? There's no way we get one more. Oh, yes, there is. There you go. That's 10,000 combined in 4 minutes. Look, I'm not saying that I didn't get myself in a fortunate situation. I did. But it's also a case of pushing the boundaries of this vehicle. And that is how I've ended up with one of the best win ratios on my entire account. And the best win ratio of any of my tier 10 tank destroyers, apart from the Object 268 version 4. But that thing's been nerfed so much recently that I'm not even sure that I could be able to maintain my 69% win ratio in that tank if I was to continuously play it. So all in all, the STRV 103B, I think this thing is an absolute monster. I think it's one of the must-have tank destroyers in World of Tanks. Its gameplay is so different. This tank was released at the peak of World of Tanks. I think it's one of the best vehicles that Wargaming has ever released from a balance perspective and also from a fun perspective. It's been in the game since 2016. And I still think that Wargaming has set a bar very high for the quality of tanks and how they can match them. I think it's an absolute tragedy that this vehicle is not played better. And if I could only keep 10 tanks on my entire account, this would be one of them. So, the STRV 103B. What's stopping you from giving this tank a go and playing aggressively? Anyone can sit at the back of the map and snipe with the best sniper at opponents that drive in front of their line of fire. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you that you have to play aggressively on every single map. Sometimes when you end up on a Malinovka or a Prokhorovka, it is the right thing to do to go and be the god tier sniper. However, everyone can do that, and what will really set you apart as a player from the rest and allow you to get more ace tankers and allow you to get more marks of excellence is gaining that confidence and that knowledge, especially of the enemy gun calibers, to take the fight into close quarters. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was my masterclass on the STRV 103B. Really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below, nearly said the chat that I'm not streaming today, what you think about the STRV 103B. Is this a kind of tank that you like to just chill and sit back in and just snipe? Is it a therapy tank for you? If that's the case, that's fine. Or have I managed to convert any of you medium tank players out there who didn't realize that there might be a non-turreted medium inside the tank destroyer class for you? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.